Back to back and better than ever. It's Tom Jones, my former radio partner, longtime columnist at the Tampa Bay Times, and now with the Pointer Institute, pointer.org. He has his own podcast as well. Will join me for a second straight day, and we're going to talk a lot of interesting things, including, is the NBA better without the Celtics and the Lakers in the finals? That's something to look forward to. And then also, some of the teams that we've covered, I had a feeling that a few of them probably should have made more world championships than they did. But we'll get into all of that here in just a second. But first, want to make sure you guys have a chance to get down to Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. If you haven't been there, what's taking you so long? You go to the middle of the mall, go upstairs. The Breitling Boutique is a terrific store. The Breitling Company has been making Swiss watches now for over 140 years. They've been in IP over there for about 5+ years, and you're going to love the customer service. Look, they're used to dealing with a lot of high rollers, no doubt, celebrities, professional athletes. You're probably going to see a few Buccaneer players if you go over there, but they're going to treat you like the celebrity that you are as well. Go in there and spend some time. This is a terrific store, great customer service. They're going to pour you a drink, learn about all their watches, men's watches, the chronomats, the Navitimers, women's watches as well, particularly sports watches for your wife, for your girlfriend. These things are durable, and they have all different color wristbands for her. She's going to love it. And right now, while supplies last, ask about the 32 NFL team watches. They've been celebrating the NFL's 104th year anniversary now for a while. And I'm telling you, these watches, if you have a favorite team, including the Buccaneers, you're going to have the Chronomat watch with the team colors as the face and then the logo on them. I'm telling you, they are spectacular. It's Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Please make sure you tell them that you heard about all of this on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, so nice. We're going to do it twice. Tom Jones joins me from pointer.org. Good to be with you, Tom, again. And, man, I haven't talked to you about this, but like you're now a podcaster as well.
Yeah, I'm doing the Pointer Report podcast. We don't do it every day. I don't know how you do it every day, man. We only do ours. We have
I don't know either.
A new episode every 2 weeks.
We're coming up on 2,000 episodes in about 3 weeks.
That's unbelievable.
We're gonna have an anniversary show. You're invited.
I'll come on it.
Yeah,
but,
you will.
Oh, that reminds me of something. I want to talk about it. It reminded me. I'll talk about it in a minute. But yeah, the last guest we had was Jen Psaki, who was great. She was great.
Can I tell you, I love Jen Psaki. I don't know why, but I do.
Everybody, you know what? And if you get a chance to listen to the podcast or watch it on YouTube, she
get
is
that a
great.
Lot?
Yeah. She must. She is so. Like what you see on TV is what she is, even like we were talking, before we started taping and a little bit afterwards, and just like so unpretentious and so smart.
Seems like a nice person.
Yeah, just a really
you know what
cool,
I mean? Like politics aside, I don't, none of that, but like, I just like her demeanor,
Yeah, same. She was somebody that's like, hey, do you want to go grab a BLT real quick? Like somebody you just want to hang out and have lunch with. Like, she's totally cool. So anyway, but what I was going to
can I pick that name up first and then we can continue on? Okay.
Yeah. Let me
White House
see if I have any other stuff to pick up here. But you were mentioned 2,000 shows. So actually, I think I saw where Around the Horn is ending this week.
That's right.
I think they're like in the 4,000s or something like that. It may, in fact, it may be way more than that. In fact, it would have to be, right?
How many
years?
Oh, yeah, well years over that. Yeah.
They've been on the air 5 days a week. Just
23 years. Wow.
Which, when you say it out loud, right, it's stunning that it's been on that long.
How old is Tony Reali? Did he start
Tony Reali's 46.
18 years old?
I know, he's been 18 forever. He's like Dick Clark. He never is. Yeah. He's 46 years old. He's been doing the show since, I think 2003.
So he wasn't the original host?
He was not. I believe Max Kellerman.
There you go.
Max Kellerman was the original host, and
that's right.
Tony Reali was Stat Boy. They called him Stat Boy.
He was Stat Boy, yeah.
On Party Interruption.
We missed, that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, missed corrections and everything for Tony and Mike.
That's right.
On Party Interruption. And then what happened was, I think I actually heard the story about it. Something happened where Max, I don't know if he was on vacation or he was having a contract thing. I forget exactly
Got
what.
Wally
They
pipped.
basically, but they brought reality and they said, all right, can you do the show? Because he was doing it from Washington back then. So he was in the same studio. It's just like the same people, or Eric Rideholm and whoever
Mhm.
what the other guy was who was doing PTI. Um, but anyway, they started doing they had Tony Reali fill in, and next thing you know, he just kept on doing it. And I don't think they ever like said, "Oh, you know what, you're the guy." He just kept showing up every day, and nobody told him that he couldn't come in. And next thing you know, 20 some years later, he's still doing the show. I had a sort of not love hate, but like dislike relationship with that show. I thought at first, I liked the idea of having sports writers on because
Mhm.
and from different parts of the country. They typically tried to break it up into the 4 time zones. You had somebody from the
Yeah.
East, you had somebody from Chicago, then you had somebody from usually Woody Page
They
from
did have
Denver.
some sort of like I mean they were more regular than not regular. Like Bill Plaschke
Yes.
was on a lot, right?
Plaschke was on a lot. Woody Page was on a lot.
Woody
Jay
Page,
Mariotti back in the day was on a
yes.
lot.
Mhm.
And then I'm sure, and then Tim Collishaw, our buddy Tim, who we know
Tim
very well.
Collins was on a lot. Mhm.
Yeah, he started doing a lot, and then they bring it out, and then eventually other people like Jay Adonde and Kevin
Right.
Blackie Stone and people like that.
Pablo
And then
Torre. Yeah.
Pablo Torre. I didn't like it for a while because I thought they got a little too hot takey, a little too like it's
Mhm.
get outrageous, and it got bogged down by numbers. And then I think reality sort of found his niche as a host, and it got into more, just more regular conversation and smart conversation. I thought
Yeah.
the big thing I liked about that show, Rick, and I think ESPN really needs to think hard about this, is if you've watched, I don't know how much you watched the show lately, but over the last, particularly over the last 5 or 10 years, it's a lot more diverse than it used to be. They have a sort of a wide range of age differences. You might have somebody who's in their 20s, early 20s on there. They have a lot of women on that show. And like I said, a lot of people from just a lot of diverse, different backgrounds. And I thought that was a really smart thing. It added a lot of good perspective. I like the fact still that it was mostly reporters. It wasn't, Reality said something really smart. He's been doing it like every interview ever, and you can tell he's bothered by this. Like,
Well,
they told
I
him,
read something where as is the case in a lot of businesses, where they said, "How'd you find out?" And he said, "Well, kind of like slowly and then all at once." Kind of that answer.
that's right.
But it was I went to lunch with somebody, and they said, they're thinking
He
about
read
maybe
it was in the New York Post. It was
Yeah.
in he said the
first
time
he
he
heard
it was
about
in
it,
the
and
New
then
York
the next
Post.
thing he knew, people are saying is like, "What people?" And the next thing he knew, there was a story in the paper.
Yeah. And then he had a meeting, and they're like,
Mhm.
well, no, we're not sure what we're doing. And then next thing you know, you have another meeting. We're like, yeah,
A
it's
meeting
over.
about how we're going to tell them about the meeting.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And when
What was their
re-
reasoning? Because you do media, like
they
what was
haven't
it? Just
they
ran
haven't
its course.
that's it. I think you
Yeah.
hit on it right there. It's maybe not relevant enough anymore. Maybe not enough viral moments. You know how ESPN is.
I mean, God knows they love debate shows.
They do love debate shows, but they love. I think there's a part of it they love stars on debate shows. And I'm not saying these people aren't stars
Stephen
that are
A.
on there,
Smith.
but Stephen A. Pat McAfee. Those are the
Yeah.
those are
Those are the new
things that go
faces of
viral.
ESPN. Yeah.
Right. And have these moments where, oh, did you hear what it was? I don't think Around the Horn and that's what I started to like about it. It wasn't just people saying crazy stuff. Let's see if I can go viral on X by saying this is, Patrick Mahomes is the worst Super Bowl winning quarterback, whatever, saying just really dumb stuff just to get a soundbite out there. But the thing I liked that Reality said the other day was the people who are on that show for the most part, even today, are columnists, reporters, people who are breaking news, people who are in locker rooms. He said, look, Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser, they're not writing for the Washington Post anymore. I'm not saying they're not going out and talking to people, and I think Wilbon does a lot of that. But it's not just two guys sitting around telling everybody what they think. Like, it's Around the Horn is still a like at its heart like a journalist type of show, and
These are work.
it's too
These are
bad.
people working in media for the most part.
Tim Collishaw and Reality mentioned this the other day. Tim Collishaw, while this is the final week of Around the Horn, he's in Edmonton covering he'll be on his way to Edmonton covering the Dallas Edmonton playoff series. He's working. He's writing columns. Plaschke will be writing columns.
That's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
That these people are talking about the people they cover. They're actively doing that. I wondered this, and I don't know the economics of anything, but it would seem to me like that was mostly a satellite-driven show, right?
Right, correct.
And it was remote, and I happen to know that it cost a lot of money to have that every single day in 4 different venues, right? Now, what are we talking about? It's the mouse. It's Disney. They got all the money in the world, but like I just saw them close Sports Center in L.A. That had to be an economic decision.
Absolutely.
Well,
Ben Strauss from the Washington Post, sports media columnist, he had a really good line in his story he wrote about Around the Horn the other day. And he said, whichever case you want to make about the finances of Around the Horn, you can make it. You could say, like, look, that show costs nothing. It's 4 people. You're paying 4 people. Reality's probably not making a ridiculous amount of money. Like compared to other shows like NFL Today
Oh, yeah.
That show's way cheaper. But you could also make the case like you just made just now, Rick, which was saying like, you're talking about 4, and it's not just 4.
No,
like it's 4 a day.
Yes. And I'm here to tell you, like, those are not, and I don't know what their contracts are. Like some of these people are contracted with ESPN and if you're, you might be on many platforms, right? You're on Around the Horn, you're on NFL Live. Mina
Emily Kaplan does the
Mina
NHL.
Kimes or somebody like that.
Right.
So you're already a Disney employee. But for the others, it's pay to play. Like you're getting, like when years and years ago, when they had Cold Pizza and then Cover 2 or whatever they call it, First Take, before it became the debate show, they would pay us to go do one segment on the NFL, and there was one every day, and there was about 5 of us that rotated, and I'm here to tell you, brother, they were paying cash money for that 2.5 minutes that I had to be on the air several times.
One of the stories I read, Rick, Woody Page claims he made $1 million one year just doing Around the Horn.
I don't doubt it. That's what I'm saying. I do not doubt it because, and then
he wasn't even on every day.
No,
I mean, he was on most days, but
yeah. Like, and that's what I mean. Like, and again, compared to what some of the talent makes and all that, it may be a small percentage, but I do think there were probably some production costs because I know those satellites aren't free, and those people, for the most part, were all remote. Because they're in those little boxes, right?
Right.
So
I remember those days when you were doing Cold Pizza and you did stuff with Skip Bayless and all that, right?
Yeah. Well, that was, when it started, it was Woody Page and Skip Bayless. Before it became First Take, Jay Crawford, who was from Tampa, was one of the hosts. Dana Jacobson, who I saw at the Women's Final Four. They had a studio in New York City, as a matter of fact. And then eventually they closed that. It was across from Madison Square Garden, and then they moved to Bristol. They moved the show to Bristol. And in the summertime, they'd have the fill-ins, right? Woody and those guys would go, at least one of them would go on vacation. And yeah, they hadn't, because I was doing Cover 2 and all that, they thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to have, this schmo from Tampa, St. Petersburg come up here and do there were 4 Cover 2 segments during the show. And the rest of it was like a morning sports news show. It wasn't Sports Center, a little deeper than that, but they had Buster Olney on baseball. They had, this sort of thing. And then there were 4 segments planned about a debate of the day, and it was fascinating the way the you get there and they put you in a hotel that everybody stays at they're on the show or they're visiting that week in Bristol, and you go in and you have a producer and you have a list of topics that they're thinking about throwing out for the debate. And then there is Skip Bayless, who I was, part of the debate against. And they go around the room and like, what do you think? Okay. LeBron James, should he retire? Whatever it was. Well, what are you going to say? Well, what do you think? And Skip strategically would never really say what he was thinking, but he'd listen to all your arguments. Like, the more you talk, the more I learned, the more ammunition you were giving him, that he was just going to counter because he already knew your argument.
Right.
So there's a real game to it. There's like a thing in that production meeting, like, oh, don't give away too much of what you're thinking. And they really did want people on opposite sides of the issue. They didn't want two people that were going to agree. If you agreed too much, it was like, all right, let's throw that one out. You know what I mean? But rest assured, like, one of the topics would be the Dallas Cowboys. Like,
even then.
Yeah. Oh, even then. And they played the hits. They absolutely Tiger Woods, right? Tiger Woods, should he be on the, this team or that team, whatever. Should he retire, whatever. But it was really fascinating and it was fun to do. And then because that segment was so popular within the show, they did away with the whole show. And they decided that sports debate was where it was at. And so First Take, which was a morning show that had 4 debate elements, became the entire damn show. And when that happened, we all lost our jobs.
Well, and then it became just Stephen A. and Skip Bayless.
There you go. It was a debate show. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So fascinating evolution, but yeah.
Wow, really cool.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about hockey since it's a game that you know. And I don't know how much attention you paid to the Lightning Florida series. Florida then went on and beat Toronto, who cannot win a Game 7 to save their what. It's unbelievable, man. If I'm a Maple Leafs fan, I can't. I just can't.
It's to the point where I almost feel bad for Toronto.
Don't you though?
Almost,
not quite, but almost.
Right.
Yeah. So like in these playoffs, is Florida the super team now? Are they now what the Lightning were a few years ago? Are they going to win it all back to back, you think?
I would pick them now, but I also think the one team that could beat them is Carolina. I think Carolina does they play that style that I think can sort of counteract what Florida does. The thing that I was wondering about when it came to the Lightning, because the Lightning had a good season. It was a really good season. And when they got knocked out in the first round, everybody, of course, pointed to like, oh, well, here you go again, knocked out in the first round.
Third year in a row. At home, they can't win.
Can't having trouble in the playoffs. Vasilevsky doesn't look like the old Vasilevsky. And I remember talking to Joe Smith, our old buddy from here
now in Minnesota.
Now in Minnesota for the Athletic. And he was, you're starting to hear stories like, do they need to blow it up? And which I think is silly. I don't think they're going to blow it up.
No.
But my feeling was, will we feel differently about this Lightning team if Florida goes on and wins the Cup? So
different Florida, how? Different that Florida was just, if they could have slayed the dragon, they could have won the Cup?
They could have been the team. There were a few years there where the Lightning, before the Lightning won those back-to-back cups and went to the final for the third season there.
Third time in a row, yeah.
They went through a stretch where they lost to Chicago in the finals.
Yep.
They lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Eastern Conference Finals. Pittsburgh then went on and won the Cup.
Lost 1-0, I think, in a decisive game there, yeah.
And then they played the Washington Capitals one year and lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. Lost games 6 and 7. Didn't score a goal in either one.
Did not score a goal. I was at both of them.
Yeah, me too. And wrote about them and wrote how they just went their offense fell apart, and yet Washington went on and won the Cup. So there were 3 seasons there where the Lightning didn't win the Cup, but the team that beat them
won it all.
Yeah. And one of those teams they pushed to 6 games, and the other 2 they lost 7 games, including one on the road.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. You know how it is, Rick, like when you're a playoff team and you go in with, like, if you're the Bucks or whatever, and you get hammered by somebody or even lose a close game, and then the next week that team that beat you gets hammered. And you're like, wow, we weren't even that close. Sometimes you'll watch a Super Bowl, even if you make the playoffs, you'll watch a Super Bowl and say, man, our team wasn't anywhere near as good as these 2 teams. What were we thinking?
Right.
So I wonder if that's the way with the Lightning, that if Florida had come out the next round and say had lost in 5 or 6 to Toronto,
Then
And
you
then
feel
Toronto
like you were
goes the next round
further
and
away
lose.
from being good. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Do you feel better the longer Florida lasts in these playoffs? Do you start to feel a little bit better? Now, I would say where that argument sort of goes downhill is you weren't that close to beating Florida. Like you lost that
Right.
series in five games.
Right.
And I know there's plenty of excuses to be made. Brandon Hagel got hurt. Florida
Well,
got away with some stuff.
almost every game was a 1-goal game going into the third period.
Yeah, the one game if they don't give up 2 goals in 11 seconds and they win that game, is that a different series?
Yeah.
Right. But at the end of the day, you lost the series in 5 games.
Right.
But do you feel better if Florida goes on and wins the whole thing? Say, well, at least we lost to the team that won it all. Nobody else beat them either. You know?
I suppose you could look at it that way. I like you said, I don't think they were that close in the series, or maybe the scores are a little skewed. But here's what I would think: like, what are you doing to combat what Florida does that gets you beat in the first round every year? Because you're going to keep playing them. The way the NHL is structured, they want those teams, those regional rivalries, right? And the teams in the division to go against each other. So, like, don't you have to build a team now, the way I think Florida did, to counteract what the Panthers are and what they do?
I think they tried to do that, but I think with the midseason acquisitions, picking up Yanni Gord and Bukestad or whatever, I think they tried to address that. But you're right, Rick. My feeling is if we started again today, everybody's healthy, Brandon Hagel's back, and they played another best of 7 series, Florida's
going to win it.
I think they could have played a best of 51, and Florida would have won that series, and it wouldn't have gone 51 games. That was just one team
better.
that I didn't think they could beat. Yeah,
I saw one game live, and it's always you get a different perspective when we were down on the glass, and man, I'm here to tell you, it seemed Florida made it seem effortless what they did. They won every battle. They gave no space at all to the Lightning to shoot the puck. They created it was so difficult just to keep it in your own zone. Like they just had the formula.
I went to game 1 of that series, and the thing surprised Steve was there. Maybe it was different. I was sitting in the lower bowl, and it just didn't feel like there was almost like a nervousness. Like I felt the crowd, and then Florida took them out of it.
Crowd was not in it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree on game 1. Yeah, there was a nervous energy, and then Florida scored early, and they were chasing the game.
Yep.
They were chasing, and I thought Cooper made a really bad decision to try to challenge a goalie interference call, and it turned into a power play that Florida took
scored again. Yeah.
Time to score. And I just felt like I walked out of that arena that night. I'm like, this was the fear that I had that for the Lightning, that this is how this series is going to go. Like but they were in the next game. They were in the next couple of games, and they won.
It was 2-1 and 4 minutes to go in game 4 to go 2-2, and you had a lead. You had played a perfect period. Florida on the third period, chasing the games, had 1 shot on net in 16 minutes, and then they bad coverage and an unlucky break, and they were down. They went from up 2-1 to down 3-2, and that was the series.
Right. And how much could they have used?
If it's 2-2 going to game 5, it's a different. Yeah. Who knows what happens in that series?
Exactly. But I just had the feeling like that we look back and we say that every time. Every team can say that. But I bet you I can go back to every Toronto series lost.
Toronto could say the same thing. What did they do wrong in that series to lose to Florida in round 2? And I mean, that's what when you play a sport like hockey, unlike the NBA, with a sport like hockey where 2-1 is your score or 3-2 and games are within 1 goal, like one unlucky bounce can be the difference in a whole series.
Right.
When the Lightning lost to the Maple Leafs 2 years ago in the first round. They lost in, 6 or 7, but 3 overtime losses. One lucky bounce in overtime, and that whole series has changed, and Tampa Bay wins it.
It's funny you mentioned that series because the Lightning lost that series, and they were the better team.
Yes.
In that series. Mm-hmm. However, I could go back to the year before when they beat Toronto in 7 games and went to the finals.
Yep. Yeah.
Toronto was the better team that year. Played better in that series.
Yep.
Should have won that series and didn't. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
all right, let me ask you
playing a low-scoring sport, one bounce, one unlucky whatever 1 inch
One
on
bad call,
on an offside, and your skate was 1 inch past, and goals waved off. I mean, those kind of things happen in hockey.
No, I still remember when the Penguins beat the Lightning in what 20
Yeah, Jonathan Drouin.
60. Jonathan Drouin, if in Game 6 got called for offsides, if that goal is allowed, I'm telling you right now, the Lightning win this. Not only do they win that series, they win the Stanley Cup. I'm convinced of it.
Well, and against Chicago in the Cup in 15, if Bishop and Hedman don't collide, and I forget which game that was early, whatever game, game 1 I think it was.
Yeah,
if they didn't collide and Chicago ends up with an easy goal, like Tampa Bay may go on to win that series.
And Detroit in that year could have said, we lost Game 7 at home because Braden Coburn flipped the puck at the net.
Yep.
That went through 1,700 bodies and found its way into the net. Like, we should have won that game.
I mean, every playoff series in hockey, there's usually 1 or 2. I mean, occasionally you get a blowout, but occasionally most series, you could point to 1 or 2 or 3 instances of if this just broke a little differently. I mean, every overtime game is a crapshoot. It's a golden goal.
It is.
I mean, against Colorado, there was 2 overtime losses in the Stanley Cup final. The Lightning were dominating both those periods.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
Colorado got the goal. Maybe they missed too many men on the ice for Colorado, and they came down and scored. That's all it takes. And one of those games go differently in the Colorado series. You're at Game 7. Then who knows what happens?
Exactly.
Like series are usually closer than okay, it was 5 games. Most series are closer than
no, there's no question. There's
4-1. I mean, occasionally you get one of those series where it's just a blowout, but rarely.
The funny thing is, I'm a hockey guy, Rick and Steve. You guys know that. I have very little interest in watching Florida, Carolina. I think it's boring hockey. I have no interest in seeing Edmonton again in the final. I saw it already. I already saw Florida and Edmonton.
That Dallas-Edmonton series should be a good series, though.
If you
don't want to see Edmonton, okay, but it should be a good series. It should be a fun series to watch.
I'm bored with hockey. I don't know why. I like the NBA. I want to watch. I can't get enough of the NBA. And
was it because there are new teams in?
I think so. I think that's the thing. Here's the deal. We're going to have in the NBA this year, for the 7th year in a row, we're going to have a new champion. Not only is it going to be a non-repeat winner, none of the past 7 championships have been won by the same team. And this year we have the New York Knicks, who haven't won an NBA championship since 1973. Which was the same year. By the way, I think Indiana won an ABA championship. That's their last championship of any kind in basketball. Minnesota's never been to the finals. OKC hasn't won a championship since they were the Seattle Supersonics with Slick Watts and Jack Sikma and those dudes back in the 70s. I'm telling you, Rick, I'm into the NBA now because of that. But there's no villain. There's no Yankees. There's no Kansas City Chiefs. There's no Los Angeles Dodgers. Is this better? Or would you be more interested in this type of parody? Or are you like, no, we need the bad guy. We need the dynasty.
Well, I think first of all, I think it's good for basketball that the Knicks are back in it, because I think New York's just unbelievable basketball city, right? And they celebrated like they won the damn title already, just to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
They're going to lose to Indiana probably, but yeah.
Yeah. And Indiana is one of those teams, like, they're really, really good and really, really deep, and they're going to play, more than the 6 guys you're going to see coming off the total Knicks team, but they're going to surprise people just how good they are. I still am one, and this is hard to say when you cover sports in a market like Tampa Bay, but like, I like to see the Lakers and the Celtics. I like history, and maybe it's nostalgia, but like, these are great franchises, and you almost have this expectation, like, yeah, they should be there. Is Oklahoma City going to move the needle for me? They got maybe the best player in the league, but like, I don't know that the Timberwolves is what I want to watch. Like,
I don't think you're alone on this, Rick. I think you're in the majority.
But I like legacies. They're there for a reason, right? They and again, maybe it harkens back to childhood, but like, you see the banners and you go, wow, like, okay, this is the NBA, right? This is, you start hearing the music, and you're like, okay, Chicago. If the Bulls could be good again, right, might harken back to Michael Jordan's era. Yeah, I'm not going to get fired up about Oklahoma City and Minnesota necessarily.
I think, Rick, you're more people I would agree with you than
And the
would
ratings will
disagree
show
with
it.
you. The ratings will definitely show it. And I understand where people want, even if it's somebody to root against. The reason the reason people love debating the Dallas Cowboys on ESPN is because nobody's ambivalent about the Cowboys.
That's right. You either love them
You
or you
either
hate
love them or you hate them. Everybody's ambivalent about the Minnesota Timberwolves. As good as they are, and as talented as Anthony Edwards might be, and he may be the next. Yeah, people say he's like the closest thing to
next Jordan. Yeah. Well, his game
yeah.
looks a lot like it. Maybe Kobe, but yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. But
he would be better in a Lakers uniform. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, put him in a Bulls uniform.
It's like the NCAA tournament. Everybody loves the Cinderella upset in the first round. Until when? Till the second round. Like,
that's right.
Now I got to watch them get killed by the next blue blood.
And I got Duke, North Carolina in the final.
If you give me Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky,
if you go chalk, you're going to get 3 out of 4.
Right. And yet there was a time, and I actually wrote this a few years ago. Is UConn bad for women's basketball? Because and if you watch women's basketball most years, and this year was not much different, it goes pretty chalky. You usually have the 1 or 2
almost
seeds
always, yeah.
Is that good for women's basketball, or is it bad? Do you want to see an 11 seed get in there? I don't know. And that's the thing, Rick. I'm telling you right now, the Yankees and the Dodgers are going to play for the World Series. I'm pretty sure of it. And
I don't know that I would disagree. At least one of them will be there.
At least there you go. At least one of them will be in there. And I think it'll be the Dodgers, and I think the Dodgers will win it again. Is that better than if we would have the Rockies? Well, I know the Rockies are horrible. We were just talking about it the other day. But the Rockies and the
Rays,
Royals.
Phillies. I don't know. Rays, somebody. Milwaukee. I don't know.
I think most of the country would say, no, I'd rather give me Yankees, Dodgers. Give me Cubs, Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Give me Cubs, Red Sox. I'd rather watch that. I'm not sure
I disagree. It's terrible to say when you cover teams in the small markets, relative small markets like Tampa Bay. But you mentioned working at ESPN and me doing stuff. Like, you're forgotten. Like, if you're the Carolina Panthers, even if Cam Newton is a first overall pick, even if you go 15-1 and make it to a Super Bowl, they're forgetting about you the next year. They just are, right? Like, you don't have the history, you don't have the market size, like whatever that thing is. But yeah, I would watch Celtics Lakers all day. You know what I mean? Like, trot out the ghost, and they're going to do that. I think it's cool about the Knicks is you're going to see a ton of players from 2 different eras. When the Knicks were playing in NBA Finals, but I don't mind new players and new teams. It just feels like whoever these guys are, whoever the stars of these teams are, they're most likely going to end up with one of these legacy teams here before long. But
going way back,
they've a bunch of different teams have won the NBA title. Like, there hasn't been a repeat winner in a while, right?
Right. No, it's been a while. I mean, you look over the last 7 years, we've had Golden State, Milwaukee, Toronto.
Yeah. Golden State's another one I don't mind watching,
Right. Yeah. And we get used to watching them. And think back though, Rick, when we were kids and growing up in the 70s, and it was basically the same teams in the NFL every year. It was Pittsburgh, it was Oakland, it was Miami, it was Dallas, it was Minnesota, and it was the
Rams or something.
And that's it. That's pretty much it. Every now and then somebody would pop up, like a Houston Oilers or I don't know, San Francisco made the playoffs a couple
Bengals
times.
went to the Super Bowl one year.
Right.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it moved into the next phase where you had San Francisco and the Giants were basically.
Well, I think football is more than almost any sport. And of course you could say this about the NBA for a while too, but football in particular, the team of the 70s were the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steel Curtain. The team of the 80s, San Francisco 49ers, right?
Yeah.
Team of the 90s. I really believe the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 2000s, it was a little
Then it
jumbled,
became
but
the Patriots League for the next 20
Patriots
years.
then just took it over for 2 decades.
Now, was that good for football? Was football
No,
better
well,
that we had a basically the entire country outside of the
was
New
trying
England
to beat
basically
New England. Yeah.
hated the New England Patriots, hated them.
Yeah.
But maybe that's better than watching, Carolina and whoever they played in the Super Bowl that year. I can't remember.
I just think that greatness is rare and dynasties are rare, and when you're in the midst of watching one do what the Patriots did, they become the villains, obviously, because everybody's gunning for them. But I think that's good for the sport, right? Like I think you want to take down the bully, like you want to knock off
we
the
had
guy
stories
that's got
like,
the
are they cheating? And they're spying on people, get Spygate,
and they were.
Deflategate,
That was the
and they're
thing.
taking the air out of the ball.
That's right.
It was so stupid, but it was fun. Like
it was awesome, like how the hell are they pulling this off with a guy that wasn't drafted number 199? Like, no, those, and the Colts, tried and finally got over the hump, and that was an amazing, deal, and yeah, I mean, I think it creates rivalries are good for sports. Rivalries is what you want, and if it's a big market and there's a lot of interest in the nation, then that's cool. So it's tough because TV is the one that wins, right? Like TV is what finances these sports, and they want LA and they want New York and they want Chicago and they want Dallas, and I get it. Like it's almost like we're talking about debate shows, like that's who they want to talk about, but that's good for the product. It's good for the NBA. It's good for the NFL if the New York Giants are relevant, like so yeah, I don't know. I have not watched. You've watched these NBA's the tournament. I have not watched probably more than a half or two of any game. It's crazy.
I think I've decided what I want is all parity, all new teams now. But then 20 years from now, when I watch the documentaries about it, I'm glad that it was the legacy teams.
Yeah.
Like no, they're not
Bulls,
making
right?
they're not making documentary. They won't be making documentaries about the great Timberwolves Thunder rivalry in 20 years. But I'll sit there all night long and watch Magic versus Bird.
Exactly.
Till 3 a.m. watching.
No,
So
I totally
by the
agree.
way, speaking of New England, and I don't want to get off on a long tangent on this, and there's not much to say. We have to be really careful with it. I cannot get enough of this Bill Belichick story. I cannot get enough of it. I will read anybody that writes anything about him and this woman that he's dating. I will read it, just so you know.
Jordan.
I will watch it. I will read it. I will listen to it. I cannot get enough of it. There was a story in the New York Times. They had a features writer do it. This story about, and I think the feature writers even went up to Maine. The people were covering this beauty contest that this woman was in, and I realized it. And the reporter called it it's catnip. And what it is this story is. There's so much seriousness out there right now, what's going on in the world, where it feels like I can name you about 10 stories a day that could end. You know what the last line of the story is? The world ended the next day. Like it does feel like there are like 10 things that happen every day where the final sentence is, and then the world everybody
ended,
died. Everybody died.
Everybody died.
And this is a story that is just fun. Pete, so somebody wrote me the other day and said, why are you paying attention to this Bill Belichick story? I was like, because it's too juicy not to pay attention to. And I get sick of writing about all the other stuff that I have to write about. I cannot get enough of this story.
What is fascinating about that whole thing, and you can talk about, I saw a story today where they met and she would have been 20. The 58-year age difference, right, which is a lot. But what's so amazing is here's Belichick, whose entire career, right, was focus. It's about the team. Do your job. I don't want any distractions. Kick TB12 out of the facility. And we're on to Cincinnati. All that, right? Nothing got in the way of the team. To the point where he would call out Tom Brady because he wanted to humble him in front of the team so that everybody knew, well, if I can call out this guy, no one's bigger than the team. And now he goes to North Carolina, and every story is about his relationship, with his girlfriend. Like I couldn't tell you who's on the Carolina Tar Heels team. I couldn't name one player because all I hear is Bill Belichick. Now, I don't know that that's what North Carolina signed up for. I tend to think they wanted the attention to recruit players and win games, but they got something entirely different than the Belichick that New England had.
If you had told me, and he's 73 now, right?
Yeah.
If you had told me there was another 73-year-old, and I know Robert Kraft's older than that. If you'd have told me, he's dating this 20-something-year-old, I would have been like, I guess I can see that. The fact that you just hit on it, the fact that it's Belichick,
that's the thing.
Wait, what? This is weird. And I was watching that CBS. I watched CBS Sunday Morning. It's a tremendous show. I love that show. And I was watching it. I watched it like in real time. I almost fell out of my chair when he was asked, how did you guys meet? And out of nowhere, we're not talking about that.
We're not talking
and Belichick looking at her.
I don't remember asking you a damn thing.
Well, here's Belichick was like didn't say a word.
I just kind of said what she said. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was stunned by that. I could not imagine there ever being a time.
Is there another human being that could tell Bill Belichick? Right. Exactly. Yeah. Stacey James, who was the PR guy for years in New England, would never attempt to tell a writer that Bill wasn't answering a question.
Right. Because he didn't need the help.
No.
And her jumping in. And as soon as she said that, I go, oh, you know what now? Whenever you tell people we're not talking about that, a bunch of journalists get that, talk about catnip. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to spend the next year looking into it like it's Watergate. Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to find out where you guys met.
Yeah.
I cannot get enough of it. I love this story because it's not serious.
You're right. It's voyeuristic. It's kind of like, what really happens between two adults, the 50-year age difference, all of that. But the biggest thing for me is like, if you're if you're Julian Edelman, right? If you're Rob Gronkowski and you're all these guys that sat through those meetings where he just lit them up, right? And it was no distractions and, focus, do your job. And you're seeing this, you're going, what the hell?
Like, that's what I'm saying. They're burning up the text line with each other.
Oh my God.
Like, did you see this? Dude, did you see what he said?
It's like the Tom Brady roast, only in real time every day. You know what I mean?
And I feel like they're adults, so we're allowed to look at it because they're the ones putting themselves out there. He's selling a book. He's recruiting players.
Yeah,
he's a public figure. She's in beauty contests. I don't think anybody's getting harmed here.
By the way,
no. I'd
That's
never
true.
want this story to end. I hope he coaches at North Carolina for 10 years. I hope she's there the entire 10 years.
Oh, I have a feeling.
I love everything.
I have
about
a feeling
this
it's going to end, and I think I know how it's going to end.
I just don't want it to end because then I have to go back to covering stories where the last sentence is, "I have a good life, everybody, and enjoy the next 20."
Well, that might be the next story you write for Pointer.org because Lord knows there's plenty of craziness going on in the world today. And where can they see your podcast? How often can they see it? And what are the names?
Every 2 weeks, we're starting up the new season coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But go to pointer.org, pointer.org.
Hey, Steve would like to know where you got the blimp to do the headshot above you.
Yeah, I know. He's already giving me a hard time about it. We're working on it. We fix it. Here's the thing. I haven't heard from.
Is it Goodyear? That's all I want to know.
I haven't heard from Verstick for like 1,000 years, right? And he calls me the other day, and I'm like, "Oh, Steve's calling. He's got something funny to tell me." He's gonna. And I pick up the phone. I'm like, "Hello." It don't even get a hello out of him. I'm like, "Hey, man, who's producing your podcast?" Like,
was he offered to do it
right out of the gate?
He needed another job. He needs another job.
I saw at first thing out of my mouth was like, I know, we're working on it. We were testing something out here.
Well, I got turned down for the radio show, so I'm looking for other work.
Ooh, hey-o. That was a shot and a good one.
But so anyway. So I'm glad to hear you guys have talked about it as well, too. So I'm sure.
Yeah, but not off the air. It's funnier when we can actually confront you with it.
Well, we're working. I'll have you guys on as a podcast guest, and I'm gonna show you guys from the.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
I got plenty of time. I don't do anything these days. So
when's training camp start? Pretty soon, right?
Well, my
you got
last
OTAs?
my last OTA, the last mini camp day. This is the way I break down my years. I am free and on furlough from covering this team every day. July 13th. No, June. Excuse me, June 13th.
I was gonna say July 13th. When's camp?
Sorry, June 13th. That was really not good. And then that's the beginning of the end of my life, because there'll be like 5 weeks there. And I know when I come back, and by the way, it's already hotter than I remember ever in May. I was out the other day. It felt just like training camp. Then we go back sometime late July, right before the start of August, and we'll be walking on the sun for about a month before they play a game that counts. And but there's this feeling like, okay, it's June 13th, and oh God, when this is over, I got to go back to a whole nother year of Buccaneer football. The season is long. The training camp is longer. So, and it's the 50th anniversary, Tom, and that means we have things to do. We have special things to write.
That's what we got this thing going on at Pointer. It's a 50th anniversary of the Pointer Institute as well.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Wow.
It's a 50th anniversary. In fact, we're doing a special project, as if I don't have enough to do.
Exactly.
We're doing a special project called the Pointer 50. We're unveiling stories throughout the year of 50 famous media moments, people, places, things over the last 50 years. So
50 most famous journalists that work for the Tampa Bay Times.
Yeah, you can. Are you in the top 50?
I hope I get an invite.
I was going to say, I don't know if
I haven't met Katie Couric. That's all I'm saying.
Well, but here's the thing. You mentioned training camp. And I used to feel this way about spring training or training camp with the Lightning.
Right.
Is it's so grueling. You can't wait to get to the end of it. And as soon as you get to the end of it, it's like, oh, now the regular season starts.
Got a whole season ahead of me.
Now the season, now the real stuff,
But at least you know where you're going to be. Well, I don't know where I'm going to be because I don't know if I'm traveling. But at least you know sort of the schedule, right? Like one thing I like about training camp is you're kind of like done covering the team by 12:30. Of course, you don't have any energy left. You've been laying on the beach like a beached whale for 6 hours. But the days start earlier and they end earlier. But then when you get into the regular season, at least there's a rhythm to it. I think it's interrupted sometimes by Monday night or Thursday night game, but for the most part, you get into that rhythm. You can't really do that in training camp very much. So, and it just seems long, and you're writing stories about,
and you're waiting for real games, like
something that matters
during the regular
right?
season. You have something to play off of.
Yeah. What is this guy going to do? He's a rookie. How's he look?
Right.
But yeah, it is what it is. Nobody's gonna hold a telethon for us. We cover sports for a living.
No, it's great. It's great, but it's the training camps are long and hot.
Yeah, no, it is what it is. Well, you're definitely hot, and you've been very gracious to give us the last 2 days of your time, and
I loved it.
Yeah, man, it was great. So come back and don't be a stranger. We'll make sure that Steve improves your camera angle.
I can't wait. I'm sure he'll call me if it doesn't.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tommy.
Thanks.
Hey, my thanks to Tom Jones. Hey, if you missed the interview I had with Simeon Rice, make sure you look that up on our Sports Day Tampa Bay podcast.
That was Tuesday's show, if you're looking.
Tuesday's show. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Enjoyed that. Enjoyed my sitting down with him a little bit as well. The Rays are going to begin a series with the Jays as they continue.
That's tomorrow. That's tomorrow. So tomorrow. Off day today for the Rays.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to have that amid one of the longest remaining homestand continues.
And get your mailbag questions in. We're going to answer those on tomorrow's show as we approach the Memorial Day holiday. Can't believe it's this weekend already. Although the weather outside would tell you it is already.
Man, it's really hot, and it's good to have a 3-day weekend. The kiddos are home from school. They're fired up about that. School is almost over. I can't believe it. We're going to have summertime fun coming up here pretty soon, and counting down the days for that. So make sure you go see our friends at Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall. Check out the watches, the team watches, NFL team watches, watches for your wife or your girlfriend, sports watches. You're going to love it. Let them know you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.